While retirement is generally seen as a time of relaxation and self-focus, God calls us to love, serve, and help others for a lifetime. He has been preparing us for this retirement season, literally our entire lives. In retirement, countless Christians enter a state of spiritual dormancy, not knowing how they are called to have an impact for God's kingdom. The Retirement Reformation seeks to encourage and empower the 50 million Christians approaching or in retirement to embrace the calling God has been preparing in them. When the world says it's time to stop, you can begin to have your greatest impact. Welcome to iRetire4Him, the mouthpiece of the Retirement Reformation, where our goal is to journey from retirement to reformation so you can say, I retire for Him.
Reaching out to the 50 million Christ followers in America who are approaching or already in retirement, you've tuned into iRetire4Him, the voice and the resource of the Retirement Reformation. I'm your host, Jim Brangenberg, of course, and I'm joined by the founder of the Retirement Reformation, Bruce Brynsma. We invite you to check us out online, retirementreformation.org, retirementreformation.org. The American dream of retirement: relax, be on a perpetual vacation, play golf, tennis, buy a boat, hunt for seashells, going on cruises 50 times in 15 years, just chilling for decades. You deserve it, right? You deserve to spoil yourself. You've worked hard for 40 plus years, and now is the time to focus on you. But how does that really work out for the average retiree or retired couple? Does it really bring peace and relaxation, or does it deliver some unexpected results? Bruce and Judy Brynsma have entered a period of transition from CEO to consultant, advisor, from for-profit to not-for-profit. To accomplish this transition, Bruce and Judy took some great time away to refresh and be prepared for the next steps in life. But wait, while Bruce and Judy were away, they traveled across the Pacific with 650 other retired folks. Was Bruce studying or vacationing? Research or restoration, or a little bit of both? Did he find the American dream alive and well, or did he find something else? Bruce Brynsma, welcome back to iRetire4Him and to part 2 of this conversation about your 2-month transition and what you learned.
Jim, thanks. It's good to be able to reflect and then be able to share on some of the expected, perhaps, and then some of the unexpected input that we received during our time away. It was really when, you put it, was it vacation or was it working? And in fact, I think for all of us, everything that we do is an opportunity to learn something more. And that certainly was true in our case.
So, in the last episode, you talked about this vacation, this transition that you went through, and that you had a lot of conversations with people. You talked about, like, you had 100 different conversations. What was the most staggering thing you learned from these conversations? The most disconcerting?
The most disconcerting was an affirmation of the perspective on retirement by a whole wide range of different kinds of people, ages from, say, probably 60 to, probably 80, or in one case, 90. But that even though they come from different places, they had different careers, but that their mob thinking about retirement was amazingly consistent. It was, again, all focused on them and what it is that they were doing. Because we were on a cruise, obviously, that was a major focus. And as you mentioned in your introduction, the one couple who was 75 and had been on, in the prior 15 years, had been on 50 cruises on the same cruise line that we were on for this one. I can't even wrap my head around that. When I ask many of them, so, what are you planning to do with the rest of your life? They immediately came back with, well, we're scheduled for this cruise and this cruise and this cruise. Matter of fact, there was one couple that we had dinner with. And when I asked him that question, he rattled off the next 5 cruises that they had, in fact, already signed up for. And so the perspective of that, when I would push just a little bit about, well, is there anything that you're thinking you could do that would use your experience or your skill or your ability to be able to positively impact others? I think with one exception, all I got was a blank stare. And so the issues that we're addressing through iRetire4Him, through the Retirement Reformation, and so on, are very real issues that extend, across our country and around the world.
What was the most encouraging thing that you learned when you're in these conversations, these 100 conversations? What was the most encouraging thing you learned?
Encouraging thing I learned is that many of those couples that we talked to, and they were almost universally couples, was that they were open to another conversation. They were not closed. They just hadn't thought about it. Hadn't occurred to them that there was another role that would impact others. When I would add a spiritual dimension to it, sometimes I got a positive response, but generally the answer was, "Oh, we go to church," and that was kind of the extent of their thought process there. So I'm encouraged by the fact that group of people suggested that there is an openness to the conversation. I'm saddened by the fact that very few of them had thought anything about it. And so all it does is provide an increased passion and a affirmation of the need for the messages that we bring on this podcast and all the other ways that we communicate with the senior community.
Did any of them, in all of these conversations, did any of them come to you and say, "I hate retirement. I hate where I'm at"? Or were all of them just still, it's tough. When you're in the lap of luxury on a cruise, it's tough because everybody's doing your laundry and they're doing your sheets and they're making your bed and they're cooking all your meals. That's pretty nice. But did any of them talk about the emptiness that leaves them with?
There were two couples that where that conversation had that content to it. In one of them, it was they were taking a cruise, kind of like a transition cruise into retirement, and the woman particularly said, we need to talk more because I feel that there's something more than what it is we're planning, but I don't know what it is. That was one. The other couple, they're retiring mutually. They were both retiring from different jobs, and he made the comment he did it in a wondering kind of a way. His comment was, "Yeah, I wonder if there's something more that we're going to do other than take cruises," and that was the most direct response we got in. And I was encouraged to be able to engage in a engaging conversation with him. But overall, it was pretty much the same across the board.
What did you, as we close out this first segment, what did you and Judy learn about yourselves?
I won't speak for Judy, but I'll speak for myself.
A wise man reflecting his almost 60 years of marriage.
That's what happens after 60 years of marriage. For myself, it affirmed the value of solitude. It affirmed the value of just simply being quiet. It affirmed the value of praying through a section of the Bible, but being by yourself and being in a quiet place where you could listen. And I found a place on the ship that became my quiet place. And that was meaningful.
That's fantastic. All right, when we come back, we're going to have a conversation with Peter Vanacore about mentoring and how retired people can get involved in the mentoring conversation. And in the final segment today, Bruce, I'd love it if we could talk about how all of those conversations energized you and have re-energized the Retirement Reformation as we move forward into 2023. You're listening to iRetire4Him with Bruce Brynsma. We'll be right back.
Recreating Retirement is an interactive small group study helping you to move from nothing to what's next. You can join us on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. East Coast time on Facebook Live. Our goal for this study is to provide a group setting for interaction and new ideas while leading you through a first step in your journey from retirement to reformation. Here's the big idea. During the next 5 years, 5,000 small groups will experience this journey of discovery in churches and faith-based organizations across the country. Is your church a place where recreating retirement needs to be planted? Join us online to experience the study or prepare to lead a small group at your church or ministry. Email us at contactus@retirementreformation.org or go to our website at retirementreformation.org. That's retirementreformation.org.
Hey, welcome back to iRetire4Him. As Bruce, we do every middle segment of every podcast. You've got a special guest for us. Who do you have for us today?
Well, I have a very special guest for us today. His name is Peter Vanacore. Peter, I'd like to introduce you to our audience. And would you mind telling me what it is that, from a career standpoint, that you are still engaged with? And we'll talk about that just a little bit.
Yes, I'm the executive director of the Christian Association of Youth Mentoring. And what we do is help Christians across the United States and a few other continents. We help them develop mentoring programs to whatever group they're called to reach. So that could be kids in the church and kids in juvenile justice to just kids in the neighborhood schools, kids who are trafficked. And even we work with programs that work with young adults who are struggling. So it's I've been in this now part of the ministry for 20 years, helping groups develop mentoring ministries.
And just so our audience gets a picture, sometimes it's a little embarrassing, but I do it anyway. So how old are you, Peter?
I am 68 years old.
68 years young and going strong. Now, you had a plan in place, and it seems like God has intervened. The plan was that your ministry and your board had identified a candidate to be your successor, and you were, I know, looking forward to that. And over this past weekend, just share with us what happened.
Yeah, that's a good question. We were all planned to hand it off at the end of the month, and I was going to take on another role within the organization and stay on for as long as I was needed. But we had a different type of leader who was going to take over that we thought could take it to a new level. But there were some conflicts that occurred through that transition process. And some of my staff picked it up, but a few of the board members who interviewed him individually had some concerns. And when we all came together, it was unanimous that we agreed. Everyone agreed that we should not pursue him any further. It was actually pretty heartbreaking on a lot of people's parts, but I do believe it is the right decision.
Well, as we grow older, we kind of think there won't be circumstances where we'll have to make hard decisions or there will be significant changes. My experience is that's not the way God works.
No.
And that one of the best things we can do as we age is to be prepared mentally that things are going to change.
Yeah.
And so what was your kind of emotional response to this change in direction as you're, in the vernacular, we would say you're still in the saddle and going to be there for a little while longer when you didn't expect that?
Well, do you really want me to tell you what I told my wife at that point?
That would probably be very transparent, please.
Yeah, I said, I'm glad we don't have any whiskey in the house. That's what I said.
I totally understand when we get those kinds of shocks that come its way. But as we walk in faith, we know that God's plan is better, and it's usually different than ours. At least that's been my experience, and almost every time it's better than mine. So, what are you looking forward to now in the next 6 months?
Well, I was on with my staff this morning processing this, and we realized that we have a great team together. And that was one of the things. We just went back and said, we are really seeing God do great things. My staff just came back from Rwanda, and the people in Rwanda just praised their effort and said they came in there and really humbly worked with their teams. They said they had never seen a group come in and work in that way, and they were able to empower the people who live there, the Rwandans, to really take over the ministry and move it forward. We've been working with them for years, but that's happening. We see all over the country and in a lot of other countries. So we really, basically, I've been regrouping, and we're figuring what's God's next step. So we're going to take basically a month of just praying and contemplating and not making any quick decisions and getting together and just reevaluating where we're at and looking forward to what God has ahead.
Well, that is actually will become an exciting time. And, the whole area of mentoring, as you and I discussed, we talk about there being 3 stages in retirement, and that middle one is mentoring. So typically for people from, typically age 75 or 85, roughly in that period of time. So this whole subject of mentoring, I'm really fascinated by, and I'm so glad that God had our paths cross. And I really believe that as you work through who will be succeeding you, that there will be a role that you can play in the Retirement Reformation, as lots and lots of seniors need lots and lots of help in that area of mentoring, and it's really just an important ministry. So thank you for your 20 plus years and what you've done, for all that you know, and we'll do our best to extract the best from you. So maybe in a couple of months we ought to have you back on again, and you can bring us up to date on the ongoing saga.
That would be great.
Peter, before we let you go, I think we should dig just a little bit deeper into what does the Christian Association of Youth Mentoring, how do people engage with your association? And just explain, are you training mentors, or are you attracting youth? Are you doing both? I mean, because it's a fascinating name, but we need to know a little bit more so people can engage.
Thank you for asking. Yeah, we're a little bit above what you said, a little bit beyond that. We train those who are going to run the mentoring ministries, or who are already running it. It's interesting that it's the people who come to us mostly now, not most, but I'd say more than half are retired or empty nesters at least. And we're seeing retired people having great impact across the country. In my experience, although I've been doing this for 20 years, I have been in the mentoring field for 42 years. And I have seen people in their 70s and 80s have impact on youth and their families in ways that will pay off for generations to come, and have a godly impact for eternity. So can I tell you a quick story, or do you have enough time?
Yeah, please do.
So I had a woman who was 78 and wasn't in good health. And she wanted to be a mentor. And there was a girl in the community next to her who was in a desperate situation with her family. She was only about 9 years old. This 78-year-old met with her every week for 6 years until that girl had to move to another state. And when I say that the mentor saved her life, I mean that literally, because her home, her family were falling apart in a very difficult neighborhood. And the only source of stability that came into her life was this one mentor. And to me, that's what retired people can do. And they can come in. And what did she do with her? She wasn't in great health. All they did was this: they went and cooked and baked together. And just that little act of learning how to cook and bake is one of the things that really helped the girl thrive through those years. But a simple thing like that someone could do with a kid can make an impact for generations to come.
Tell us how that, if one of our listeners wants to reach out, how do they reach out to your ministry? How do they do that?
Well, you can go to our website, caym.org. and find out about us. But you can email me. It's peter@caym.org. That's for the Christian Association of Youth Mentoring.
Peter Vanacore, thanks for being on iRetire4Him today. Thanks for sharing your story, and thanks for bringing this that's an incredible, perfect story, Bruce, for our retired audience and for all of us. Thank you. We'll be right back with more on iRetire4Him.
Our work on this earth doesn't end when the paycheck stops. God calls us to be faithful for a lifetime. Whether you're looking forward to retirement or you're already there, our all-small group study, Recreating Retirement, will help you understand, engage, and activate what God has for you in this fourth quarter of life. Join Retirement Reformation founder Bruce Bruinsma as you consider your past, strengths, spiritual gifts, and your passions, and how they all come together as the call God has for you in these years. Connect with us on our online community group at facebook.com/Retirement Reformation, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, or if you'd like to bring Recreating Retirement to your church, email us at contactus@retirementreformation.org. Are you ready to start your life-changing journey today?
Welcome back to iRetire4Him as we talk about Bruce's transition. Bruce, in that last segment, we talked with Peter Vanacore from the Christian Association of Youth Mentoring. What a great conversation.
It was a great conversation, and it has inspired me to begin to explore what, as the Retirement Reformation, we can do to provide encouragement, support, and help in that mentoring area, because I got to believe that there's any number of our listeners that are in a mentoring situation or could be in a mentoring situation. Matter of fact, I had a conversation this morning with the Dupree Institute. They're doing some work on mentoring. And so I'm looking for some ways that we can partner with other ministries that have good material in this arena. So I'm looking forward to that.
All right, we're going back to your transition working vacation, since it ended up being a research project for you. After talking with all of these people, 100 different conversations, did it add energy to the mission of the Retirement Reformation?
Well, it added affirmation of the need, affirmation of what it is that are all our research and everything that we have done, and identifying the people who we're talking to and what their issues are. And so it affirmed that. So first thing was affirmation. The second thing was a added measure of passion. If you could think of passion in a glass, and if passion is half full and we filled it up to overflowing, that would be a picture of passion and the urgency that we need to minister. It was an affirmation. Secondly, it added to passion. And third was created a renewed, I guess I can say, urgency to what it is that God is calling us to do, and the conversations we're having with our audience, and encouraging them to be able to also reach out so that, in fact, we can go from perhaps, some conversations and information to a movement that needs to happen. As a matter of fact, let me just add this to it.
Okay.
This past weekend, Judy and I went and saw a movie, the Jesus Revolution.
That was a great
movie. If you haven't seen the movie, go see it. And as we were walking out of the movie theater, I said to Judy, you know what we really need is we need a senior revolution. And we need to be able to, through the power of the Holy Spirit, to be able to bring together and to impact and to spread the issues and the messages that we're talking about here. So urgency was the third thing that has come out of our time away.
What do you think if there is anything, is there one thing you will change about your life as a result of this transition time and what you learned from other people's experiences and from this renewed passion that you have?
Yeah, I'm going to be much more aggressive in my conversations with those in leadership of Christian ministries and churches with individuals and organizations to challenge them to participate in what we're doing. And I'll be much more aggressive about doing that. Hopefully in a winsome way that will be encouraging, but still very specifically.
We need to find a way to reach all those 650 couples that were on that cruise with the Retirement Reformation. We'd love to invite you, our listeners out there, to retirementreformation.org, retirementreformation.org. So many great resources out there, Bruce. How can, let's just take that example couple that you talked to that said there's got to be something more. How can the Retirement Reformation help those retirees out there who are struggling with finding purpose, trying to figure out there's got to be something more about this retirement thing?
Well, one of the things that is a context for that conversation is, and we are working very hard to find ways where we can create community and build relationship, because then we have the opportunity through the power of the Holy Spirit to learn from each other. It's not a one-way conversation. And so if you're on Facebook and you'll go to groups, you will find our Retirement Reformation Ignite group, which you can request to join. And we'd ask you to join that community. And there's an environment in which we can have conversation. You can have conversation with others. We can learn from others, and we can come together. So, matter of fact, in the last, since we opened that up, this will be airing right after Easter. So it's been open about 2 months, and by Easter, we should have well over 700 members of that group. And so as we find ways to create community, whether we're doing it in your church with Oxygen for Life, whether we do it in your small group with Recreating Retirement, whether we do it in the context of this podcast and you join us on Facebook and become part of the Retirement Reformation community. I believe that as a result of both prayer and experience, that this is going to be a major move for us to be able to invite people into new relationships.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Bruce, as always, we plan way ahead for what kind of conversations we're going to have. And going into this spring and summer, you had quite a few topics that you wanted to talk about. And so I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget them. I'm sure you've got them all in your head, but and I'm not sure which order we're doing them in yet, but this is what I wrote down. You wanted to do a series on relationships. Talk to me about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, relationships are so absolute key. And what happens when you have relationship is that you are outward focused, not inward focused. When you're outward focused, issues of loneliness and depression and so on tend to fade away. And so I'm really looking forward to that series.
And you talked about the fact that we need to make new relationships. Many of us need to foster the existing relationships, but sometimes we even need to end toxic relationships.
Oh, absolutely. The stories that you hear, I hear, we hear of those toxic relationships where people seem so stuck and that they need to step away and step out of them. So it's not always join me. It's sometimes the person that is an issue by themselves. So we'll talk about toxic relationships, and I think we'll have some guests on that will help us understand it also.
You also mentioned that we're going to do a series on our future reality as retirees. Talk to me about that.
Well, we talk about retirement being 30 years, and so there is a significant future ahead of us. And as we think about that future, how we think about it actually helps drive what it will actually look like. And so also the future realities of the impact of technology, the future realities of the political issues that we're in, the future realities of the financial side of life. There are all these pieces, and we're in our culture and our time is in a point of major change. And as we can anticipate some of those changes, we can then find a direction and a pathway through them and do it. And finding, in fact, relationship but also joy and freedom, and escape the depression, the loneliness, and the isolation.
Finally, a series we've talked about doing is, you wanted to entitle it Gray Matter. The Growing Gray series is what I put, but since I went bald instead of going gray, but that that gray isolation leads to several things. Talk to me about, what does it lead to?
Well, there are three things that it's leading to in just an expanding number. It's gray divorce, it's gray bankruptcy, and it's gray suicide. And all of those have their roots in loneliness. And we need to talk about those things. We also we can identify, because those things are the issues that cause that are different for those who are widowers, who are single, who are widows, those who are deaf, there's all these different segments that make up the 40 million Christ followers. And we want to be able to begin to address more of those issues, but particularly the ones that are really, really troubling that I mentioned.
Finally, a couple of one-off conversations. We want to talk about the balance of leisure and purpose, the reality that both are part of God's plan, and finally, a discussion on how to be your own self-advocate for kingdom impact. Stop waiting for others to kick you into gear and kick your own self into gear. Bruce, there's some great conversations coming up. I'm pretty excited about that. Any final words on this whole transition that you're going through and that Retirement Reformation is going to go through?
Well, I know it took me probably a week, maybe a week and a half after returning back home to kind of get over the jet lag and the reflection time. But I think, Jim, I really have a great peace about the directions that God is leading us. And I think this transition time and that private time that I spent and just the whole experience has brought me to a point of that I am confident that the messaging and the support that we are bringing to this community we're on the right path, and that God is looking down and going, good and faithful. Here's a few more ideas for you, and keep going.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate it. Great conversation today. You've been listening to iRetire4Him, the voice and the resource of the Retirement Reformation. I'm your host, Jim Brangenberg, and of course, Bruce Bruinsma, the very founder of the Retirement Reformation, has shared his story about his transition finally away from full-time CEO of his investment firm to being fully invested in you, our Retirement Reformation crowd. We're Christ followers journeying from retirement to reformation, so we can ultimately say together, I retire
for him.
Thanks for listening to I Retire for Him with your hosts Jim and Martha Brangenberg and Retirement Reformation founder Bruce Bruinsma. I Retire for Him is the mouthpiece of the Retirement Reformation. Most Christians tend to follow the world's pattern of rest and self-pampering during retirement. However, in your retirement, you can be focused on God's unique call to love, serve, and help others. This can be your best season of life if you take advantage of a life's worth of knowledge and experience and combine it with a greater freedom of time and money and invest it all in the generations both preceding and following you. The Retirement Reformation is encouraging Christians to find and follow God's call in all seasons and aspects of life, especially in retirement. Take time to sign the manifesto at retirementreformation.org and explore the wealth of resources available on our site. Join this movement of God and journey from retirement to reformation so you can say, I retire for Him. Go to retirementreformation.org.